Hi, it's John Binnie. So welcome along to my video. It's all about how my spiritual awakening destroyed my life, how it destroyed my old life and helped create a new version of me that you see today. And before I get into all of the brutally honest and transparent details of my personal experience, I'd like to share that everyone's experiences in life are entirely unique. And even the terms that we use, like spiritual awakening or awakenings, are unique for everybody. Not everyone chooses to go through these experiences. And that when our souls and our human does choose to go through this, it's unique for us. We all get to experience it in different, beautiful ways and at different times in our life. And if you've already been through an awakening of some sort, well, the good news is you get to keep going through more and more awakenings. Okay, so I have my cup of coffee. I also have a slight cold that I'm healing from. So apologies if I pause at any time and blow my nose. And let me, first of all, take you back to 2016. So in 2016, I was a senior software manager at Amazon, and I'm based here in Edinburgh, and I was working very closely with, in the corporate side, in software and artificial intelligence. I was working closely with teams across the US and in particular the headquarters in Seattle on the west coast of the US. And I'd been through a career of almost 20 years at that time, and latterly 26 years in software engineering and artificial intelligence. And I'd worked across a whole range of different industries in software. And latterly, I completed 8 years at Amazon. And so in 2016, I was still pretty career hungry. I wanted to earn more money. I wanted a bigger house, a bigger car. I wanted more holidays with my family. I'm married with 2 beautiful kids, a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful kids. And we also have our dog, Patch. And so as the main wage earner with my wife working part-time, it was very important to me that I always provided for my family. I did find myself in a situation as I went into 2017 where I was working longer hours. I always felt like I was working for the next job title, the next house, car, holiday, the money. And there was this, I guess in hindsight, there was some like disconnect building within me. Like I wasn't entirely happy with everything that I was creating in my life. And so along came this, I should also add a bit more about myself. So I used to drink alcohol, quite a lot of alcohol. I would drink most nights. Being in Scotland, I also loved whiskey. And I would, a lot of the time I'd be drinking with my wife or friends or by myself. And I didn't really think anything of it. I still run each morning, Monday to Friday for about 4 miles and can keep in relatively good shape. But what was happening inside of me was this kind of building unhappiness. And alcohol was good at, helping kind of numb that and just allow myself to kind of step out of facing what was building up inside of me. And I was also very passionate, still am, in music. And so I had previously been in quite a few different bands, either writing songs, singing, or in cover bands. And then I had stopped for some time and had just about restarted back in 2017, just playing a bit of guitar and starting to practice more. So one thing I was doing was most Wednesdays, I would go along to a local open mic night. And here in Scotland, I live just on the east coast, about 30 miles east of Edinburgh, the capital. And I'd go to this pub, and we would I'd play with other musicians and play my own songs and covers, and it was just a lot of fun. And a lot of the time, I was drinking too. And then one of my friends said, "Oh, why don't you come along to a meditation session?" I think it was on a Saturday morning, and just outside of the town where I live. And so I went along, and also took my daughter with me. And it was just fascinating, because what I found was I'd never done anything like, I'd never been in a yoga class, I'd never been in a meditation class before, and I never really meditated. I think I tried some of these like mindful meditations on apps, and even sat with other people and listened to those. I always found them quite immersive. I quite enjoyed them, but I found it hard to really know where it was going, like what the purpose was or what my purpose was doing it. Anyway, when I did meditate in this, what was a Kundalini yoga class, and they were quite long meditations, or certainly they felt long to me, I started to experience very magical things. I saw the stars and the planets across the universe and energy flowing between them, like, and through them. I saw the creation of stars and planets and nebulas. I saw the universe. For the first time, I saw things that I was experiencing, receiving and imagining things that I did not know my consciousness was able to do. And I was so pleasantly surprised and delighted about the experience that I said to the teacher, I would love to do this more. Like, how do I do it? And they said, yeah, just repeat it. I said, can I do it like each day? Like, could I add it to my daily routine? They said, yeah, like on you go. So I did. Now, I'll touch lightly on some of the kind of metaphysical things that started to happen to me as I started to meditate each day. But I want the focus to be more of this video on the very human aspects and changes that have happened to me. And so I would first of all say that I started meditating each morning, and one of the challenges I found was that I couldn't really drink alcohol the night before and then meditate very well the next day. It was like this kind of brain fog sat. I remember like drinking whiskey one night, and then the next morning it was like a summer's day, and I was sat outside trying to meditate, and it was just this like heaviness in my head. So I found that really hard. I'd also just moved house, and in our house we had this it was a huge house, 6-bedroom house, big for Scotland standards, and it had this big double garage, this big empty space, and it was really I started to fill it with music equipment and some gym equipment. But it was really mine to do what I wanted with 24/7. And so I'd go in and meditate in the morning, and I also found that I wanted to do music in the mornings, because my family were sleeping. I get up early, much earlier before them. Usually get up about 5 a.m. So I found that, actually I could do these fun things before the rest of my family wake up, and then I can just continue the rest of the day with them, or go to work. So I found that drinking alcohol wasn't really compatible, because I would always get hangovers. I'd been drinking since I was maybe about 17, 18, and it had always been a big part of my life. And so when I suddenly found things that were counter to that, but I enjoyed them more than drinking, that felt like a relatively natural change, but it was a tough change, and I'll come back to that. And to give you some context about what happened was, within about 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, I'd always been interested in ghosts and UFOs. Excuse me. So I'd been spending a lot of time, usually at weekends, maybe like on a Sunday, I'd spend an hour or two especially before mobile phones were super popular. And I would just, browse the internet, watch some videos and things. So my mind was always open, and I was always like seeking the truth. And the more truth I found out there, actually, the more like quite depressing I felt. I felt like I started to realize more and more that this planet is not as it seems. There's so much illusion and so much control, more than I realized. And I found that very difficult to deal with initially, and for quite some time, for several years prior to 2016, 2017. Like I remember, with a hangover, as always, cutting the grass on an early morning at the weekend, and just feeling like my head was down. And I remember seeing neighbors, and I was just like, I just didn't really feel like waving across the street to say hello to them. So I was just like, oh, what is the point of this world? Like, what is wrong with this world? And why is everyone like pretending that everything's fine when, and this is back in 2016, 2017, when actually there's lots of problems and lots of illusion that's happening. So yeah, after 2 or 3 weeks, I'd come across a video on YouTube and had heard about spirit guides, and I thought, oh, this is exciting. So I wanted to find out if I had spirit guides, find out what they were, could I talk to them? And that's the journey I began, asking in meditation to talk to my spirit guides. Now, you can learn all about that and how I did it, and I still do it each morning, including today, which is one reason why we're having this conversation today. And you can try my free, totally free spirit guide meditations. So they're based on those first experiences. You just go on my website, johnbinnie.com, and you'll see there on the homepage either the getting started, or there's like a little carousel at the top, a little image that scrolls across for my 14-day spirit guide meditation challenge. And you can just get started on that anytime. And it gives you like a short 10-minute meditation to do each day. And the reason I say it at this time is not to try and sell you anything. It's more, that is what I started doing. That is in 2017, November 2017, when I first went through this first awakening. They're the meditations I started to get going with. It's quite funny, just as I'm sharing that, I don't know if you notice it, but my heart's like lifting, and the more I connect with the excitement of that journey back then, it felt like something very new, something very exciting, and yet I didn't know how it would affect the rest of my world. Perhaps if I knew how much it would change my life, I would have more fear about that change. Yet it felt really good. So yeah. So let me take you to first of all some of the changes. So if we go into 2017, November 2017, initially after this awakening, I was still drinking alcohol, and as I said, I would start to meditate sometimes. But let's talk about the first kind of big destruction, if you like, of my spiritual awakening. The first one was alcohol. Now, if you're watching this and you drink alcohol or you don't, like frankly, I don't care. Like, it's totally your choice. You get to choose what you consume. And I'm a big supporter of free will. Now, and I know not everyone like suffers with alcohol in the same way I did. I was definitely addicted. I would hide my problems. I would hide from my problems. I'd hide from aspects of myself when I drank. The volume I would drink, I don't really know, maybe 4 or 5 drinks in a night. But I think the worst thing was whiskey at the end of the night, because, I'd just pour a measure, like I wouldn't like actually measure, I'd just pour some in, and then I would just have as much as I could kind of take. And I think from my body's perspective, I was, drinking right up until I went to sleep. And this could be, just the night before. It could be on a work, a school night, if you like. And I'd then be waking up the next day, going for a run, sobering up, and then getting on with my day. Some people might describe that as like a high, what do you call it? Like a high functioning alcoholic. But whether you regard that consumption as an alcoholic or not, or binge drinking or whatever, and I drink a lot more when I was with friends, it was a big part of my life. And importantly for me, I had a lot of hangovers. I just always had a hangover the next day. I'd get a lot of migraines. I remember people would often laugh at me about the amount of ibuprofen and paracetamol I would take, and I used to just get really dehydrated and really struggle. But it was an addiction, so I would just keep going. And I also remember when I drank alcohol, it always made me feel quite low. But it was almost like that low feeling wasn't as low as the kind of deeper unhappiness in me, because it kind of like helped numb some of that. So yeah, some of the first destruction was of the spiritual awakening was friends, like drinking friends. That was just really hard. Like, it was hard for them. I remember initially we would socialize, and I remember I would try drinking, and sometimes I'd have like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks off drinking, and then I would drink, and I'd find it so like physically difficult. And then I would like definitely, like, even like my body was, cleansing more in between these binges, and I just found that so difficult. And I remember my friends found it really quite difficult, because they were like, why is he doing this? He doesn't really drink now, and he's drinking with us. And they could see it was almost like I would dive into much darker places much faster as well when I would be drinking. It was just the topics of conversation. Like, my behavior wasn't really, not from what I remember, any worse. It was just like my jokes would become more inappropriate, and the things that I would say would be much darker. My darker sense of humor would come out more, and just often was way ahead. Like, I'm doing it like early in the night, and I think other people found that quite hard. So yeah, alcohol there reached a point I just had to say, look, to alcohol, to myself, we can't like keep going like this. And I do remember in the mornings, I still do this actually, on the weekends, I'd have a long bath in the morning, which I really love, like an hour in the bathtub, and I'd often have it very hot, and I'd get up out of the bath, and I'd be looking at my body in the mirror, and I remember looking down, like sometimes I'd have like rashes on my back, and I would be looking at myself in the mirror, and there was a part of me, and this still fascinates me to this day. There was a part of me that was saying to me, it's like the man in the mirror was saying to me, there's another way, John. There's another version of you that doesn't drink, that stops drinking for the rest of their lives. And that is much happier and healthier. And I was like, really? And it didn't totally shock me, because I felt that I was often, and maybe still am, kind of in extremes, like either drinking a lot or not at all, as an example. Either writing music every day and thousands of songs, or not at all. So yeah, I said goodbye to alcohol, and just made the decision to stop. I think initially for just a few weeks, I was trying to drink at just the weekends, like maybe one night or a couple of glasses, but it just didn't work. Like, my body, I couldn't do it. I found it too physically too challenging. Like, my hangovers would just be so bad. I couldn't do it. So as a result, invitations to different events with friends definitely declined over time. And no big fallouts, no arguments about it, just that clearly I had changed. I wasn't the same drinking John anymore, so I let that go. I also noticed that my consumption became much more conscious when I stopped drinking alcohol. Now, that was just the start of conscious consumption, and you might feel some of this. My right ear is just ringing quite loud. You might hear some of this like repeating themes through this video. So the first thing that hit me was I would often open up the fridge and just stare at it. And back then I'd eat anything, like literally anything. And I would like open the fridge, get a bottle of beer, and then I would look in the fridge. I would just, whatever was there, it didn't matter how healthy or unhealthy it was for me, I would put it in my body without thinking. And when I stopped drinking, I realized that actually those moments matter. You know, when you're drinking or not drinking, it doesn't matter. Like it's still important to be conscious about what you drink. Excuse me, just blowing my nose. Okay, so my friendship circle changed. It also meant for like work nights out, and they weren't that often, but maybe once a month, or especially when I traveled. Like back then, I would traveling sometimes once a month to Seattle. And in fact, we'll come on to work in a moment, but I remember there was one really difficult experience where I was going to Seattle so often. So it's like thousands of miles away from Scotland to Seattle on the west coast of the US. And it's like a 9.5 hour flight from London. So, it's like a 15, 16 hour door to door experience. And I'd often go on a Monday morning, I'd leave the house early, fly out there, be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday night fly back. And then Friday I'd arrive back. And I remember very vividly one Friday coming into the house, and my daughter, and her bedroom was just like near the front door. My daughter came out of her room and said, "Oh, you're back from work." And I said, "Yeah, hi, did you miss me?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, and she looked down and I had this suitcase. And she said, "Why did you take that suitcase to work?" And I said, I've been in Seattle this week. Did you not notice? And she said, "No, I didn't notice. Like you're not here that much during the week." And that I found so shocking that she hadn't noticed that I was away, because I was away so often. And even when I was home, I was working, it's so late. So that was like one catalyst that made me, think seriously about the amount of time I spent traveling. So at least I started to have some of those conscious conversations with my manager, with my teams at work, and started to, instead of going like once a month and spending a week every month on the west coast of the US, the other side of the world, I would start to reduce that to every 3 months or so, which is still a lot, right? But it started to get better, at least with travel. So yeah, things, if I talk about the kind of destruction in my career, if you like, and I, just to be clear, I use the destruction in a very positive manner, right? There was clearly fundamentally unhappy parts of me. One of them was alcohol. One of them was, friendships with, I still consider them really beautiful souls. And if you're listening, I still value our friendship. And yet I just know that if you drink alcohol and I don't, you choose whether you want to be around me or not. I'm not judging you in any way. But sometimes I do still catch up with those people and bump into them, and they're wonderful people. So yeah, with work, things started to change quite a lot. It was maybe more gradual. So what were some of the first changes? I would say initially I was still career hungry for probably the first couple of years. And in fact, I was starting to build teams in artificial intelligence and recruitment. And what I found myself doing at Amazon was I haven't mentioned music a lot, but because it's in part because it's such a huge part of my life now, is that I started in this music studio at home. I started writing songs at weekends, and then I started using the messages I was getting from my spirit guides to create the lyrics for songs. And during 2018, in fact, it was during 2018 and into 2019, during some of my travel, and that I began realizing that I could write songs before work, so I could do it during the week. And I remember reading this magical book by MJ called From All to Love, and the book is called The Fearless Life Guide. Please do look it up on Amazon. And the Fearless Life Guide is just fantastic. And what it really helped me do is just like, I knew at the end of that book, and I must have read like 10 books in my entire life, like so few. And that's one of them. And I'm so glad it was that book. And MJ is phenomenal. You should follow her on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. But what I felt was that there was this really magical experience where I needed to make a decision. I felt compelled to make a decision about something that I would choose to be fearless in my life about. And so I chose music. And blowing my nose again. And with music, what I found was that I could start to bring some of that into work as well. So as well as building teams in artificial intelligence and recruitment, we're learning all about how to do it fairly and responsibly. Previous teams had failed to be able to do this or have the right level of expertise and governance. And so I was busy building like a panel, like a responsible AI panel that would help from legal and compliance and industrial organization, psychology, and just like all kinds of different and diversity, and lots of different people from around the company to help work with my team to help guide us through this journey of building these artificial intelligence products. And so, for instance, at meetings, like at the end of a meeting, I'd always take my guitar when I went traveling, and then I would just play a song at the end. And it's like a way of thanking my colleagues for being there. And I might write, just make up something in the spot, improvise a song about our experiences. So that started to change. And I also started to get a bit of a reputation. The more I did that, I would play more music at events in Edinburgh. And it continued to be a theme. And I felt like it helped me bring all of me to, or more and more of me, of the ever expanding and kind of the ashes of the old John, as that the old John fell away and the new John was being rebirthed, this phoenix of me, that music would be a big part of the new version of me. Okay. And then I would say that other things started to change. I started to pay attention to what the company was doing. And it's fascinating, right? Like, I'd spent so long in my career just kind of ignoring like whether I thought the company was doing good for other people or not. And I don't just mean Amazon, but all the employers I'd had before. I was much more interested. I always loved working with customers. I always loved working with people. And I enjoyed that with Amazon. It was like science and people. So science to help positively change people's lives. And I felt very much like that. I felt like I could see, we'd look at the data and then we'd see the people that would join our company or not as a result of the tools we were building. And then we would make sure that we were doing a good job for them, that we were being fair and we're reducing bias and all these things. And there was just incredibly strict rigor that we created to do that. And and thankfully we were greatly supported by the leadership team. And I still, even since I left there in May, spoiler alert, I left there in May last year in 2024. that work continues to grow, and I can see the roles that they're investing. And I know from my keeping in touch with my previous teams that they've continued to grow their work, which is just beautiful to hear. Anyway, what I then found was I started to think more about, do I really want to just keep going to the next level? I did go on and get a promotion. So I was originally a software manager, became a level 6 and became a level 7 senior software development manager. And that was really powerful. Like it was a huge change. I say powerful in that it went from me just managing one team, which I was very happy at doing, and I feel I excelled at that, to being kind of okay to sometimes good at building 3 teams. And things were very stressful. I'd had teams before of up to about 75, 77 in previous companies. But working at Amazon, it was like running 3 companies, because every single team is like a team of 8, like plus a manager and some supporting people. And they're very autonomous, and they're just like a startup, except they get paid a regular salary, and you still have to solve your customer problems, and you have to keep reporting a lot to people about your progress and measuring through key metrics how you're performing. So it was really tough. I mean, really exciting, but also really tough. Especially the workload I found much higher when I was promoted. So yeah, I went through that experience, and I started to find myself being, and a lot of this is my creation, right? Drawing myself into working more and more hours. And so I had to start creating more boundaries, like saying, oh, I have to stop, at 6 or 7 p.m. I think it was like 6 p.m. when I was working in the office. And then around through like the COVID years, it was like 7 p.m. Because I wasn't traveling, but it was a lot. And the working week was really tough. So I began to just see that this was a company that I was pretty, okay with working in. It was incredibly demanding, and I saw that a lot of people suffered with stress and burnout, and a lot of people that worked for me suffered with that. And I found it quite shocking that I'd actually become very tolerant of stress and anxiety, placing incredibly high demands on me. Like a lot of people would say, "Oh, John, you can do like 5 people's productivity," and at points I was literally doing 5 people's jobs, and I know that because we then hired 5 people to do those, and they found it a lot. And I don't say these things to brag. I think if anything, it was quite intimidating for people to work for me, and I don't think it was very healthy to lead by example. Like it's, work and productivity isn't all about doing, but I became excellent at doing and not very good at receiving. So my work changed. Then eventually I decided, that's it, I'm going to go part-time. So the last 2 years of the 8 years I was there, I went part-time, and it was almost dead on, almost to the month, exactly 2 years from the year I went, the month I went part-time. It must have been April 2022 to April, May 2024. And during that time, like during the conversations I was having with my wife, I mean, I was earning a great salary, like loads of money, especially for Scottish standards. And we'd find ourselves in sometimes the beginning, like either part of my regular salary or as part of a bonus, like we would buy things like a new motorhome, or, which are they're always expensive, even the cheapest ones. Or we would, have like a huge expense in our house, like a new bathroom or kitchen. Like we would just do these things. And some of it almost because, how do I describe this feeling? Like when you have more money than you have time to enjoy something, you kind of just spend the money and hope that you'll just get a little bit of enjoyment out of it. And I do remember at one point, my wife saying, with all this money we had coming in, she said, "Oh, why don't we buy a holiday house?" Now, bearing in mind we already had a mortgage, quite a big mortgage on our big 6-bedroom house. Just blowing my nose again. So we had a big mortgage on our 6-bedroom house. My wife was suggesting we got another mortgage and bought a holiday house as like a business to let out down the Scottish borders. And that terrified me because I felt the irony was I felt that I would, when I felt in lack of time and energy and health, and I felt like I was just on the edge of burnout, like I was something had to give. That either something I was going to have to do something intentional, like intentionally go off sick to start to recover from this physically, as I was just drained all the time. I was working, I don't even know how many hours, like 10, probably 12, probably an average of 12-hour days, and a lot of travel and a lot of stress, like a lot of people really struggling and having to, and other people going off sick. So I'd have to step in and take on their work. And it was just incredibly intense. And I remember my wife saying this about buying a second house, a second mortgage. And I was like, oh, why does that make sense? And yet, when you think about it, in our economy, in our monetary systems, that the irony is that often debt, or maybe more specifically additional property, always has, certainly the UK, like always has a degree of being a sensible investment. But I just find it ironic that, getting more debt would be better. As it turned out, since then, it was one of the best decisions perhaps we'd made in our lives. And certainly it was my wife that came up with the idea. So I'm very blessed with her. And I could also see that she could see, changes in me. And I would say that my wife was just incredibly supportive and has just been such an incredible rock through these huge transitions of me, that she always had these like spider senses about what I was going to do next. Because what would happen is I'd say like, oh, I'm thinking of, and that's quite scary because when John says he's thinking of, he might just make that his decision and then totally change his life, like completely flip it around to be that. And in this example, not long after we bought the place, within a year and a half, I went part-time at Amazon. So from 5 days a week to 3 days a week. It caused a 40% cut in my salary. And we stayed in our 6-bedroom house for a few months. And then we're like, oh, I think we should just sell. Like it's probably costing us more. Like I remember things like the electricity was something like, it was thousands. It was like, and this is back then when it was actually quite a lot cheaper, into the thousands, like somewhere between £4,000 and £6,000 a year. Like it was just a lot. The price has gone up a lot here since. So we also just felt like we enjoyed the house, but there was rooms that sat empty. There was always 2 rooms that sat empty because we're a family of 4. And there was 2 rooms sat empty, and then there was also my office, and then a big studio, and it was just like it's too much space. You'd spend an hour and 15 minutes vacuuming, hoovering, an hour and 15 minutes as well doing the grass, and the options that people often do is like get a cleaner, and it's like, oh, I just didn't want to then spend more money because to look after the things I'm already spending money on. And then the amount of junk I was buying so much junk, ironically, from Amazon. And, just often some things were quite expensive, like guitars or things from my studio, drum kits. But I'd often just do it because I was like unhappy and bored. And so we're filling this house really, really fast with stuff. So we decided to move. We spent a bit of time, quite a few months, hunting around for somewhere. And so 2 years ago, no, it's longer than that, 2.5 years ago now, and we moved to this house where I am now. And right now I'm in a garage, which we converted half of it into this little music studio that I'm using. this is a soundproof room within the garage, and then the rest of the garage is now more recently our kitchen. We extended into it. The house is much smaller, four bedroom house, but it is just perfect. It has like an even bigger driveway, so we can have our camper van now, which is a smaller camper van, and a caravan as well, so like a trailer, and plenty of space for that. We also sold our car because we didn't need to have. I'm the only driver in the family. We don't need to have two vehicles, and yeah, the house is just a perfect location. It's really close to our old house, just like a street away. And so there's very little change in our kids' lives, in our lives. And it has just a perfect space, perfect garden. It's just wonderful. So we feel really blessed. So yeah, you could argue that my dreams of 6-bedroom house was destroyed. and it was like, it was gone. Like it become quite dead to me. I was like, why do I have this, something that is really my greed that's driving this? We didn't need it as a family. I think I also find it quite shocking that we bought a camper van, a motorhome, a big one as well, 7.5 meter long, a 6-bed motorhome. And we were spending a lot of weekends going away in it. And as a family, we were really close. So we would spend the whole time sat really close physically together. And we loved it. And then when we came home, we'd often, in this huge house, we'd often then sit together really close. We'd sit in a little, in the living room, although it was huge, we'd have all the chairs sat close together. And I just felt like, why do we need such a big space when we want to be so close together as a family? We're doing it like weekend after weekend. So that was a beautiful thing to let go, to be destroyed of the older versions of me. And of course, things like your fuel bills and taxes and all these things like significantly reduced by an order of magnitude, like maybe like half. I think our new house probably is about half. Our current house is about half the size of our previous house. So yeah, that changed. And so I'd gone part-time at work, and going part-time at work as a senior manager it was supported, especially initially, but wasn't really well received in the long term. And I get why. I did have to hire my replacement, and there was no there was no other way of like really describing it. I worked for this manager, and they're great. We actually met up a few weeks ago, and I got to visit my old teams as well. I spent a couple of hours in the office chatting with everyone. But it was really fascinating, because really what was happening was I was phasing myself out of the company. And I think I started to know that, but I was really scared of it. It was so funny. I was scared of being fired. I was scared of underperforming and leaving. And it was just a lot harder. In those 3 days a week, I would work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I would go into work for 2 years, spend the morning catching up, working really late, seeing where I could help different teams, working on the team I was like allocated to, and I worked a lot on the Gen AI, like Chat GPT style artificial intelligence, and so it was a lot to cram in. But the rest of the week, 4 days off, you'd have 4 days, and so I still had a really good salary still, even though it was down by 40%. And I really enjoyed it, like somewhere between the balance of plenty of money, plenty of time. It felt much better. It felt really like a much better experience. But the more the time went on, the more anxiety I would have, fear, anxiety I would have on the days off. And it's like my body was not ready. It was not really very happy about going into those really intense periods, during that working the 3 days. So yeah, eventually that had to go as well. And maybe for some of you, and if you've watched all the way into 45 minutes, you're watching this thinking, do I have to leave my job? Did John leave his job? Yes, I did. you don't have to leave your job, right? Many of us that are choosing to go through these spiritual awakenings will actually start to, change companies from within. And I feel that's really, really important. And I think it's much easier to change a company from within than from the outside. So, but you can do both, right? And we're all here at our own individual, purposes and reasons and missions. So what I started to do was, I remember I went on when I started to get more serious about would I or wouldn't I leave my job. Well, one thing I'd been doing, as well as my daily meditation practice and writing music, and even getting a world record for the most albums digitally released. That was in 2022, for 110 albums. I think I'm now at 165 albums. And what I found was that I really wanted to be clear about my mission, my purpose in life. And you can imagine that, especially with my wife, she's like, where's all this going, John? Who are you becoming? Because we'd been together since I was 15 and I'm now 48. So she's seen a lot of different versions of me. And I like to think that the version of me that you see in front of you now is who I was when I was much younger, although I was much more naive and probably much more malleable at 15. I feel just like that version of me now. Before I got greedy and had enjoyed moaning about everything in the world, and before I fully subscribed to these kind of Western cultures and ideals and dreams. So yeah, what happened was I went on first I was talking with my wife about it and saying, I think I want to leave Amazon, and I think I want to follow my own mission. And one thing I've been doing is I've been doing, I call it energy healing, clearing, quantum energy healing and clearing, and really developing my psychic abilities since 2017. And I've been, especially during COVID, it really ramped up. I started doing 2 sessions a week where I would go on Zoom and I would do these sessions for people. So I had no training, but I had been on some membership groups of people doing things and seen people do stuff on YouTube, and I just wanted to learn on the job, and that's exactly what I did. I started by just sending golden light to people, starting with friends and family to begin with, and then that got bigger and bigger over time. And I could see that people were willing to pay for those sessions, and that there could probably be a viable business just doing that work alone. Just blowing my nose again. And so I was talking this through with my wife, and I was saying, I think what I want to do is leave Amazon and then do this work full time. And she said, oh, why don't you get some qualifications? Because I had no qualifications in any of this work. And she found, first of all, a meditation teacher training, because the work I do is meditation. I've been meditating every day since 2017, and I still love it. I love doing it every day, and multiple times a day. And so I went on that training course, and what was really profound about that training course was learning some structure and learning I learned a little bit about meditation. That was kind of helpful. What I learned to do is how to run sessions, how to teach people how to meditate. And I also came out as a psychic. I was like, I think I'm psychic. And I remember I'd start crying a lot in these meditations. At the end, I'd be telling the rest of the class. And they were just incredibly supportive and loving. And they could see I was going through a transformation. So there was this version of me that was dying, which was the one scared of calling themselves psychic. And so that's now gone. And it says it on my business card on my website that I'm psychic. So it must be true. So yeah, I trained as a meditation teacher. And then I went on and did training in in clinical reflexology. So that's foot massage, massaging the nerve endings, the reflexes on your feet, because all your organs and every part of your body and your nervous system comes out as these nerve endings in your feet, and you massage them, the different areas that map to your parts of your body, and you can help your clients in whatever presenting conditions they have. So it's great for relaxation and stomach issues, stress, anxiety, burnout. There's a long list of things that can help with menopause symptoms and many things. So I qualified in that as well, and I also really enjoyed doing a placement. In fact, the day that I left Amazon, because I'd handed in my notice just over a year ago, in January 2024, and I remember the day was it like a Monday I left? Yeah, I think it was like a Monday I left was my last day. It must have been Monday the 30th of April, last day in the office. And I was volunteering at a hospice. And so the next Monday I was back. Instead of being in an office, I was in the hospice doing foot massage for the reflexology for the staff there. And it was lovely to still have like people and a job to go to. And even if it's just like half a day for the week, it was really enjoyable to have that consistency as I continued into my new adventure. And over the turn of the year, I'd written myself like a vision of what I wanted to do. And really my mission is to help balance the darkness and light across this planet, especially within us, starting from within us, help us, everyone that's going on their different spiritual awakening journeys, and help support people by teaching them foundations and practices that they can do to help with clear and protect your energy, how to develop your psychic abilities, and then how people can become practitioners like I am, like a quantum psychic practitioner, and many, many more things. So I started that business. I left the company at Amazon. That was a big thing. They gave me a beautiful send-off and created a song for me, and we had pizza for a couple of hours, and it was really beautiful. They were just such kind people, and these were all the people I'd hired over the previous 8 years. So that was just phenomenal to say goodbye to them in that way. And then as I left the company, I into April, May 30th, I registered my new company, Heart Centered Wellness. And so I'd fully let go of like corporate John. Corporate John had been destroyed. And I did wonder a bit. It was like, I'm leaving software completely. Like I was doing no coding. I was doing no, building of software systems. And that was just a big career shift. And I wondered how much of that experience would help me in my business. And it turns out it's helped me a huge amount. And one of the big lessons that I learned, I still carried forward some of the great Amazon principles, like obsessing about your customers first. But what I learned was, most importantly, and one of the reasons it took me quite like a good couple of years to leave Amazon, was because I wasn't ready yet. I was already on the edge of burning out there, even in working 3 days a week. And that was me, like pushing myself so hard, in many respects, trying to overcompensate and trying not to get fired for only working 3 days instead of 5. And yet the reality was that as I went through this journey, I needed to learn that balance, like a work-life balance, like having the right balance between my work, my company, and then the mission for helping others, and balancing darkness and light, and raising people's vibrations and helping them on their spiritual awakening journeys. That I also needed me. I needed me, my wife, my family, like time with them, camping, dog walks, time in nature, time off. And I am older. Well, it depends on your age. You might be looking at me thinking I'm a spring chicken, or you might be thinking I'm an old guy. Depends how old you are. But now that I'm 48, it's not inconceivable. Some people, well, I'm actually watching a YouTuber just now. She retired at 48, 49. It's like, wow, that's so early. But it's, we were able to sell our holiday house, pay off the mortgage on our current house, And I'm very happy to say that we were able to become debt free this year. Just last month, we became debt free. And that is a phenomenal feeling. It's do it. Like if you're able to save, if you're able to work through, your different debts. I mean, we've made a lot of sacrifices, right? Like downsizing our house, we sold our car, sold our holiday home. We had sold a larger camper van and got a smaller one. Like we downsized and simplified everything. It gave a huge amount away to charity. I think over 30 carloads. I say over because it was 24 carloads and then 6 van loads since we sold the car as well, of stuff that we just accumulated especially in our bigger house, that we either took to recycling or donated to charity. So that they were like huge parts of huge like changes in our lives. But it's an amazing feeling because none of those things were making me happy anyway. So not having them actually just made me feel more free and much easier to get on with life. Just blowing my nose again. And this is all I'm doing today, by the way. I'm taking the rest of the day, I'm just resting. No music today, just a nice long rest. So yeah, I was on the theme of work-life balance. Like I created this, like in Amazon, they call it a PR FAQ, which is a press release and frequently asked questions. Often you write it and you date it like 3 years in 3 years time or 5 years time. And then you write it in present tense. So the future in present tense, and you describe all the cool things you've done for your customer, the problems you solve for them, and then how you later in the FAQs, you answer questions about how you did it for them, all the things you built, how they helped solve those problems. So I did that. I called it, I enhanced it. So I called it I think I call it my future vision FAQ or PR FAQ. And the single biggest difference for me is it has me in it. So I am my business, right? I'm just one person in my business. And what I did was I created like this balance. So I'd say, because I knew that if I just like achieved my goals, so it's very common when people start their own companies to just have a single financial target. They might say, I want to earn, a lot of people talk about mythical like 10K months or 100K years, like whatever their numbers they would focus on that. Now you get to choose, right? There's no judgment here. You just get to choose what you want to focus on. For me, I knew that it wasn't the money. If I only focused on the money, the experience I had at Amazon taught me that so crystal clear that if you focus on one thing, you will every single day and every decision you make, you will always be influenced by that one single focus. And if that focus is a key metric of money, it will change your thinking to constantly focus on that. Now that's fine if that's what you want, but I didn't want that. I wanted this balance, this work-life balance. And so I gave myself like some indications of how much money I wanted to earn. And it's still like an ongoing reflection. And maybe not in the way that you think. Maybe you think, oh, John, maybe you're not earning enough money and therefore you're settling for less. No, it's if anything, it's the other way around. It's like there's times I've earned, there's months that I've earned more money than I would have expected, and so trying to like achieve that right balance. So where we got to was really I'd sat down with wife and said like, maybe I want to work like 3 or 4 days a week. The rest of the time, because especially while our daughter's since left home and she goes to university, but our son, he's going to school during the week. My wife works part-time. So for the days that we can, I'd like to go camping and on adventures. Weekends, like 2 to 3 days a week would be phenomenal and still, have enjoyable time at home. So that was something really big. And so I've written that in. If you're interested, you can look at my website, johnbinnie.com, about me, and it describes my future vision. Take a look at that. You'll see in there like these constraints of like how I fill my cup first, how I cultivate my self-love, and how I really focus on having that right balance. Now, you might notice from the fact that I have a cold at the moment, and I haven't had one in years. Like, that was some of the big benefits of like letting go of the old John, was that I haven't had any like illness or cold. My health's been fantastic. But I know fine well, and I apologize to my body for this, is that in November, I picked up a huge amount of work. So I got tons of more customers, and it's just been such a beautiful roller coaster ride to see such a huge increase in the number of people, into the hundreds of new clients. And I'm doing a whole mix of things, one-to-one sessions online, doing my Swedish massage and reflexology, and my new blended services of psychic reflexology and psychic Swedish massage, as well as blended with quantum healing. Like, these experiences are phenomenal. But I am right now doing too many. But the good news is I only really have February and the rest of February and March, and then it starts to settle. And it's a really funny thing, right? You don't get to do this when you're working for another company. It's much harder to do, to convince your manager that you should slow down your work. But I've already done it. And right now it's, what are we at? February 22nd. And I'm fully booked into July. But as of April, May, June, July, things settle down a lot. In fact, April, I've got a lot of holiday. And so I've started, it's really funny. Remember I was talking about the Amazon work pattern? And I was talking about that with my wife. It's like, what we loved about the 3 days on and 4 days off is that when you're on, you're just focused on that. And so you can just work long hours if you choose, and you can do, you can be in that zone. And then for the rest of the time, you can take the time off. Now, it doesn't mean to say I'm doing nothing in the other 4 days. There's still a reality of answering queries, making content like this, but there's no like fixed time to it. And you only need to create. You only need to do what you really want to do. And I'm sure a lot of customers would be happy if they emailed you on a Friday to wait till a Monday. I don't have to do everything like 24/7 or same day, as I often find myself. So these are just experiences that I'm continually refining my work schedule. So that balance, that work-life balance is just really important. And it also helps me and my wife look forward to retirement, maybe 55, 57. We'll just wait and see. And that I would start to maybe ahead of then, or maybe after then, I'll be reducing from 3 days of full on sessions with clients, like reducing that a bit over time. And it depends on my business model. I have a mix of training where I can do larger numbers of people, and mixtures of one-to-one sessions, and in-person work as well, which I do every Tuesday. So it's just like exploring these things and see how they feel. So in summary, as we're just past an hour, and I want to take good care of myself and have the rest of the day off doing nothing, is that my spiritual awakening in November 2017, destroyed the old John. The old John is gone in so many respects. Or should I say, the bits of the old me that were actually that didn't serve my highest good, that they were making me unhappy. My drinking, my software engineering career, my greed, like big home, big car, big motorhome, second home is a holiday home. My view of the world, like I used to feel like quite a victim to the fear programming and controls, and you see it in our politics now, especially in the US, but also bleeding into the UK as well, and the rest of the world, is that I know that it's happening. I can see it, right? But it's more that I'm saying to myself, I'm part of the solution. I'm taking responsibility for this planet. We're all in this together, and I'm going to help people. Many of us, thousands, millions of us, going through our awakenings, and I'm here to support you if you're watching this. This is the new John. What I would also say is that that, for some people, and I know that for those close to me, it's been a bit of a wild ride seeing me shift so much. And for those of you that have stuck with me, thank you. I always feel like you know who your true friends are when you go through big shifts and they stay with you and that it feels right to you. And then the other aspect is this new version of me. I feel happier, healthier, lighter, stronger. I feel younger. It's so funny. I look back at photos of me just 7 years ago and I feel like that version of me was so much older, and yet I'm 7 years older. And, there's, of course, sometimes I just want to be like that guy. I keep forgetting his name. The guy in the Matrix who decides to go back into the Matrix. Like he's one of Neo's crew, and he goes back. Excuse me. And he wants to be plugged back in. And he doesn't care if it's a simulation or not. He just wants to experience these things. Sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I wish I could just be, oblivious to all these things that are going on and just have a simple life. But and then I come back, and I can do that just by, I don't know, watching a movie on Netflix and, having a long bath, whatever I do. But now I feel like I'm part of the solution. It is my responsibility to help, just like all of us, help with this rebirth within us, because the rebirth of this world starts within us. It starts with facing our fears of lack, of greed, of hate, of division between us. And then the more each of us work on ourselves, I've had so many, there's a whole other videos I can make, and let me know if you'd like it, about, some of the deepest, darkest shadows I've had to face, trauma in my life. And another reason why I'm sharing this video is because I feel a little bit scared saying it, is I feel a rebirth happening within me. There's another one coming, John. And it's like you get these spider senses for this, right? It's like, wow, what's this next like awakening or awakenings? And it's quite funny. My little thermometer is saying 222, which is funny. When I look in the video, it says it's mirrored backwards, so it looks 555. I've never noticed that. The 2s and 5s are just reversed. And even the humidity is 55. So that's quite warm, actually. It's probably why my sinuses are flaring up as well. But yeah, I feel that rebirthing, and know that, like, all that career that I had in software engineering, it's been really helpful. I even did some AI development, like helping train chat GPT models on my training material and my public client sessions to help answer customer queries when I was sleeping. It's like, I'm not actively using it right now, but these were things that I loved the ability to do. Setting up all my tech, building my website. These are just really important things for me. And I know that it's a future that I'm just really excited to continue to explore. What happens next? We don't get to know, right? My advice is follow your fear. Why follow your fear? There's a door in your life that's a fear for you. And on the other side of that door, on the other side of that fear, is your dream life, is you stepping into a new, more awakened version of you, and a phoenix rising out of the ashes of the old version of you before you step through that door. And one of the biggest things for me was stepping through the door of my fear of leaving my corporate job and starting my own business. I'm very blessed to have an abundant business now. And it fills me with such joy and hope for the world as well. Because I think, well, if I can do it, you can do it too. I'm just one person. And yes, I've had lots of experiences in corporates and small companies, but if you have a clear vision and you focus on looking after yourself, and hopefully better than I am today, then you'll only excel at what you do. Follow your joy, follow your passion, step through the doors of your fears. And if you're interested in working with me at all, visit my website, johnbinnie.com. You can explore my free meditations, as I mentioned earlier. There's also the Getting Started page. You can just start working through that. You start with free, and you can go on and book sessions with me later if you choose. And it's just a real honor to share my journey with you. If you have requests for future videos, do let me know. And I'm looking forward to doing more for you on this journey, but most importantly, having a nice, relaxing weekend with my family and looking after myself. So thank you so much. And I'm sending my love from Scotland. Take care. Love you.